Afternoon, everyone. Can you hear me okay? Yes, yes. Okay, good. Great, thank you. Thank you for our interpreter, Kaylee, for our sign language interpreter. Before we get started this afternoon with our next HU talk, I just want to put a plug out there for an event coming up after homecoming on October 31st. Dr. Cesar Abarca, who is our Dean of Social Work, will be on main campus facilitating a participatory ephemeral sawdust mural. So he's going to be outside in the sub courtyard outside the ballroom from 1 to 6 that afternoon and leading a collective and participatory art project. They're going to use sawdust and natural dyes and flowers, and they're going to create this art mural on the ground. And this is to celebrate the ancestral practice of remembering family members, loved ones, and friends who have passed. So this is one of those Day of the Dead activities. So if you're around main campus on October 31st, you might stop by outside the ballroom and get your hands dirty and see how creative. I look forward to seeing this. I'll bet it's going to be very colorful. And it's only going to be there until November 4th, and then it's going to be swept away. So I think that's a very, very cool. If you want additional information, Dr. Abarca, you can just use his nmhu.edu email and reach out to him if you have any other questions. So this afternoon, we're going to hear from Dr. Dawn Berry and Dr. Angela Redondo, both of whom are assistant professors in our early childhood multicultural education program here at Highlands. Dr. Berry has been in early childhood field for 32 years. Thank you for your service. And Dr. Redondo has been in the field for 21 years. You guys are great. So they're going to talk to us today about understanding the difference between the everyday interactions with children and a meaningful interaction with young children. I didn't know there was going to be, I hope there's not a test. So I don't know who's going to go first, but thank you for joining us, and I'll turn it over to you guys.
Thank you. Hi, welcome everyone. Let me just share my screen real quick. All right, so welcome. And yes, there is a difference between a everyday interaction and a meaningful interaction. And so hopefully you learn a little bit about the difference today as you join us. So, all right. So we did do a little introduction, but you know, it's always nice to get to know your presenters. And so my name is Angela Redondo, and this is a picture of my family here. I have 2 sons and my husband. I actually grew up on a small ranch here in central New Mexico. And 7 years ago, I moved back to the house that I grew up in. And my husband and I have 1 dog. It's not an active ranch right now. The dog is the only animal on the ranch. My family, we do love to visit Disneyland. I actually just came back from Disneyland from last weekend, and we have a stone at the entrance of the park. So that's a fun fact about me. And here is my colleague, Dawn Berry, and she's going to share a little bit about herself.
Hi, I'm Dawn Berry. I grew up in rural Missouri on a farm, and then I moved to New Mexico in 2013 and fell in love with the weather, and with the food and with the diversity of cultures here. I love spending time outside with my family together. My husband and I have a blended family, and together we have 6 children and 9 grandchildren, and a 10th one due, we found out in March. So we're really excited to have that new addition. We have 2 granddaughters and 7 grandsons. So we're kind of crossing our fingers that the next one will be a little girl too. But that's a picture of my husband and I and one of our grandchildren. So thank you. I'm sorry.
Oh, no, you're good. Oh, actually, you have the next slide. I forgot. Sorry.
So then, just our objectives for today is that our hope is that you will understand the difference between everyday interactions and meaningful interactions, and then also understand the components of a meaningful interaction.
And so part of the reason that we decided to do this is, early childhood is such an important part of a young child's life, and the family that raise and have interactions with young children. And so we felt like it was important because many of us have interactions, as Dr. Berry shared, with her, blended family and all of the grandkids that she has. She's had, she has many interactions with family members. And so that's what kind of led us to this conversation that we're going to have with you today. So to go ahead and get us started, we're going to start with some introduction around why we talk about interactions in early childhood. Well, for many of you, you may have heard of Lev Vygotsky, but Lev Vygotsky is a theorist that has informed much of the practices that we use as teachers in early childhood and in education in general. But Vygotsky first explained the vital connection between interactions and learning. And so in his explanation, he really talked about social interactions and how they play a key role in how children learn to think, how they learn to reason and communicate, and that the range of knowledge and skills that a child can develop when they're interacting with an adult is greater than the knowledge that a child can gain on their own. And so that really informed, our practices early on. Vygotsky lived until 1934. So since then, in 2016, the Center on the Developing Child at Harvard University shared a report that affirmed Vygotsky's theory. And in their report, they stated that children develop within an environment of relationships, and that these relationships affect all aspects of development. And that it's really about the quality of these interactions that really lay the foundation that supports later outcomes for young children. And so as I shared with you, part of the reason that we really wanted to share this information is because your interactions with young children make a difference to their development and their learning, especially when we think about the quality of those interactions. So to get us started, I'm going to share a video with you. And as we watch this video, what I want you to think about is, what were your initial feelings as you watched the video? And how do you think that the video illustrates building positive interactions for young children? Okay, so let me just make sure that I shared my sound, and I didn't. So let me do that, and then we'll watch this short video.
Starring 2 chocolatey treats on a stick.
Oye, can I borrow your gummy eye?
What for?
No más?
Yo, comedian Michael Jr. here. As you know, I just flat out enjoy doing comedy. But one of the things I love way more than that is being a dad. Not too long ago, I'm going through some video footage, and I run into this video of my youngest daughter being born. Now, of course, I was there. I actually took the video, but I had never really experienced it from this perspective before. Now look, we're in the hospital room. She's sticky and she's baby and all that stuff, and she's in the middle of crying. And then I speak up. I start talking to her, and watch how she responds when she hears my voice.
Okay, Portland, look, I'm right here. It's okay, it's okay. I'm right here, I'm right here. We're doing just fine. It's okay. It's okay, I'm right here. Right here, yeah, it's okay. It's okay, baby, it's okay.
That was pretty awesome. So check it. A few minutes later, the nurse starts working on her, puts her pamper on her, and I'm not saying anything, and she actually starts to cry again. Then I speak up, she hears my voice, and stops crying, like again. But I want you to notice what else happens after I tell her that I love her.
Mom hold you. Portland, it's okay. It's okay. It's good. It's good. It's good. I'm right here. I'm right here. I am right here. I love you. I love you. I love you. Yeah, I'm right here. I'm right here. It's okay. It's okay.
That's just phenomenal. I'm like, whoa. Here's the thing. We'll always have times where we're not as comfortable, probably even to the point of tears, where life is just heavy. The key thing to do in those moments is to be still and listen for the Father's voice, because He is trying to talk to you. And I can tell you what He wants you to know is that He loves you. All you got to do is open your eyes. Happy Father's Day.
All right, so I'm going to stop sharing just for a moment so I can see everyone. So if you don't mind just unmuting, or you can write in the chat, just what were your initial feelings about the video? Yeah, it made me smile too. I have seen that video several times in the work that I've done, and yeah, it warms your heart, right? Thinking about the power that we have as adults as we interact with young children. So really, this video supports the idea that our interactions really make that difference, right? We can see this brand new baby that was just born, the impact that hearing her father's voice had on her and her development. When we think about social emotional development, right? As she heard her father tell her, "It's okay, I'm here, I love you." You know, it soothed her. She stopped crying, and then when she heard him tell her that she loved him, or that he loved her, she opened her eyes, right? So this is just, to get us kind of thinking about the different ways that we interact with children.
And just thinking that, she was first born. She was just born too, and she already had that connection, like somebody had put in chat, um, to her dad. Even though she was just born and just meeting him, she recognized his voice and that tone. So it just brings us, like Angela was saying, to those everyday interactions that we have with children. We interact with kids every day. Probably some of us, it may not be every day, but just depending on, where we are in our life. So with grandkids, I may not interact with them every day, but there were times in my life when I was a preschool teacher, or whenever, I had all my kids at home, I was interacting with children every day. So we have these everyday interactions that we have with children, and typically our goal is to have those extra interactions be warm and caring and encouraging, and just a lot of times happening spontaneously. But a lot of times, if we aren't conscientious of what we're doing, those interactions that we have may not have a purpose behind them, or have purposeful learning with them. So we may make comments or ask questions, or maybe even provide information and give instructions, but it's just part of that interaction. We're not being intentional with it. And then there's other times when we are acknowledging a child's efforts for what they're doing, or we're giving them hugs, or we're correcting something that they say. So as we reflect on our interactions that we have with children, we can think and look at a couple of examples that we have here, and then think about these examples. How do we see these interactions? So with the first interaction, Haley has spent the night with her grandparents. In the morning, her grandfather goes into the room she's staying in, and with a smile on his face says, "Good morning, Haley. Grandma and I hope you slept well. Are you ready for some breakfast? Grandma made your favorite pancakes." So from this interaction, we're really seeing that her grandfather, from her grandfather, that Haley, she's receiving that message that she knows that she's an important part of their life and she's very special to them. Her grandparents show that they know her as an individual, and they know her preference for breakfast, which is for those pancakes. And the second example we have, each day as Noah waits for his turn to use the bathroom, his teacher tells him, "Just stand there in the line quietly." So in this example, Noah is learning that school maybe is kind of boring, and that one way to make it more interesting is to kind of fool around, mess around, or start a fight when standing in line for the restroom or whatever. So he's learning to kind of come up with his own fun. So whether interactions are positive or negative, or whether that quality, whether it's intentional or not, children are still learning from them. So that quality and the intentionality of our interactions with children really matter. And that is where meaningful interactions come into play. So for us, being more intentional and thinking about what is it that, this child's going to learn from this interaction with us. Okay. So for meaningful interactions, our interactions can be spontaneous or planned, thoughtful, or automatic. They can be individualized or one size that fits all, but really those kinds of interactions that we have with children matter. So in the past several years, probably, for several decades, and it just keeps getting more and more information. When I think about from the time that I was in college until now, just how much we've learned, especially through the study of the brain. But the type of interactions, the adult-child interactions, have been very much the forefront for early childhood years. So when we think about those interactions, each day, throughout the day, we have the possibility of having dozens of interactions with young children in our lives. And there are times when we make comments, or we ask questions, we provide information, or even give instructions. So we're using those words when we talk to them, when we interact with them. And then other times, we might acknowledge a child's efforts, giving them a high five or a thumbs up. We may also make requests or correct something that they may say through gestures. I know my kids always talked about when I would give them the eye. I don't know what it looked like, but they knew when they were in trouble by my expression. So from that expression or gesture, we're communicating. We also give hugs and pats on the backs for communication, smiling, frowning, pointing, waving, just using gestures and words. And those are those basic interactions. But to give those interactions some more quality, we want them to be meaningful. So with meaningful interactions, we're really trying to give our interactions with children careful thought, because it's really important for the development of children. So these interactions are called meaningful interactions, and they're intentional, purposeful, and responsive exchanges that happen between an adult and a child. And we'll go more into how we can be more purposeful, responsive, and intentional.
All right, so there are steps that you can take to transform an everyday interaction into a meaningful and powerful interaction. Okay, so these 3 steps build on one another, and you begin with step 1. So in step 1, you're present. Okay, and so this is an inward frame of mind. So we look at ourselves. So you're self-aware, you're in the moment. So those are key words that are really important in this step. Okay. And that you're open and interested in the significant things that a child may do. So while you're staying in step 1, okay, so you want to make sure that you, again, are in the moment, you're self-aware, then you can add step 2. And this is where you choose what to say and do to connect. So the key word here is you're making a connection with the child. So while you're staying present, right, and in the moment, and you're staying connected to the child, meaning that you're interested, you're acknowledging, you want to spend time with them, then you move into step 3, which is where you'll be able to extend the child's learning. Because as Dawn shared, much of the research that is being done on the brain and how connections in the brain are made, it's through these interactions and that learning that takes place in young children. And so here, this is really where we're going to be able to model and align, our interactions with Vygotsky's theories, and where we really are combining, right, the 3 steps to create a meaningful interaction. And before we're going to go more in depth, this is just kind of that introduction slide into those 3 steps. But as we look at this, and I know this happens with a lot of us, right? We're busy, we're going to get groceries, we have a vision here. And in this example here, in this interaction, you can see this adult is very focused on getting those vegetables, probably to make dinner or whatever. And so this interaction may not be as intentional or responsive as this interaction on the right, where we definitely see this caregiver just really connecting with the child. They're present, right? Where in this example here, obviously the focus is more on getting those groceries and moving on with the day, which, it does happen. So as we move into the next few slides, we're going to go more in depth in each of these steps.
So with that first step, being present, one thing that we talk about is having static, and that's us as adults. We have static, that noise in our head that is distracting us. It could be we're thinking about what's that next thing we have to do, like that picture that Angela just showed, where the lady was at the grocery store. She could be thinking, oh my gosh, I got to hurry up and get home. I got to get the groceries bought and get home because I have another child that's supposed to be home on the bus and I'm already running 10 minutes late. Or, it could be that thought that I have this bill that's due on Friday, or it's due on Thursday and I don't get paid till Friday. What am I going to do? So, there's just those distractions or that noise that's in our head. And sometimes whenever we have that static going on, it's hard to be fully in the moment. and to think about what's going on now, and being present is really meaning to quiet that static and allowing ourselves to be fully in the moment and to focus only on the now when we're spending that time with that child. So being present means taking that moment to think and prepare for that interaction. And when we're present and in that moment, and we're self-aware, we can be more open to the interesting and significant things in the life of the child. So just what I like for you to do is just take a moment and think about, what are some of those things that causes static for you? And then you can go in, Angela put the link into the chat, but think about what are some things that you can do to quiet that static. Taking some deep breaths where you take those deep breaths in and count to 4, hold, and then exhale with 4, then do it again. I find if I do that about 3 times, it really helps me to kind of ground myself to become in the present. But think about what are some of the other things that you do. I know when my children, when I had three teenage girls at home, one thing that I did, and I didn't really start doing it for a long time, I would go and get my nails done. Which you can see I haven't done that for a long time. Haven't had kids at home for a long time. But I would go and get my nails done because that was a good hour. I had nothing that could pull me from different places, pull me, and it allowed me to kind of be in that moment and reset. So if you want to take a couple of seconds and just go in there and plug in something that works for you, or you can put it in chat if you'd prefer to do in chat. But I think it's helpful to see what everyone does, because then we have many things to try. I know one person I know, she used to play softball, and she coached her child's, like all of her child's, almost all of his teams. But for her, that was relaxing and helped her to feel grounded and to kind of quiet the static.
So if you click on the link in the chat, it'll take you to the slide that I'm sharing, and you can just choose a box and type something in. I added one thing that I like to do. I try to take a morning walk early in the morning before everyone is up. Now it's starting to get colder and it's darker. So I'm trying to navigate that a little bit. But as Dawn shared, you can always add it in the chat as well. Deep breaths work. I know. I just, I use that often. Yeah, journals. That's a great one. Getting your nails done. I know you spoke to that, Dawn. That's a good one as well.
And before COVID, I can't use COVID as an excuse anymore, but before COVID, I did hot yoga every day, 5 to 7 days a week, and that was great. I need to get back in that habit because it was something that I really enjoyed. Oh, and somebody put yoga on there too. Yeah.
Yeah.
But I think it is important, as caretakers or as moms, we always have people pulling from us, wanting something, and so we need to make sure that we're able to give back to ourselves and also be able to help us to be present. I also used to sing to myself when my kids were little. I would sing a calming song to myself that would help me to be more present.
All right, so now we'll move to step 2. And this is all about connecting. So connecting means observing what is interesting and significant about what the child is doing, what they're saying, and what they're thinking. It really means that we let children know that we see them, that we're interested in what they are doing, and that we want to spend some time with them, because that's what they want, right? They want that interaction with the adults around them. They want to be seen. They want to know that we see them. So when we connect with a child, it can be the beginning of a meaningful interaction. Okay, so again, that is a reminder to the child of the relationship that you share together. It also is a reminder that provides that sense of, you know, reassurance and comforting. Thinking about that video that we saw, right? That brand new baby was just born, but yet hearing her father's voice helped reassure her, right? That she was in a safe space, that she was secure. That voice she probably heard all the times that she was developing in utero. And so there's some confidence that was built, in hearing that voice. And so on this slide, we're going to just quickly view 7 strategies for connecting. And so as we think about, remember, we're building. And so as we think about being present, these are some of the things that we can think about to really help us connect. So the first is slowing down, right? We live in such a fast-paced world that we're always moving fast. I think about that picture of that mom in the grocery store, probably has a mission, right? We need to get moving. But when we slow down, we're able to stay in the moment. So when we do this, we're showing children that we are interested in them and that we want to be with them. Okay. And it really builds that time in to really tune in to what is happening with this interaction with the child. Okay. We want to make sure that we keep learning about children. So we want to have show a genuine interest in them. And we want to show a willingness to learn more about them. This really helps children feel like they want to connect more with us, right? And then they feel more open and willing to reveal more about themselves. We want to show respect, okay? And one way that we can show respect is by listening to children, just being an active listener, okay? When we are actively listening, children are going to be more likely to share who they really are with us. And when they feel free to share who they really are, we're going to deepen our relationship and we're going to make a strong foundation for young children. We want to make sure that we personalize our interactions. Okay. As I shared with you, I have 2 sons. They're totally different. They were different growing up. And so it was important, right, to respond to each child as a unique individual. This really helps us build a genuine connection that, again, gives children that solid base, that solid foundation that enables them to move out into the world with confidence, to be able to explore and continue to learn. And we want children to take risk, right? And so this really helps them do that. As I shared with you, we want to listen to children, and we show respect by listening, and respect shapes everything that we say or do, right? We want to guide children and we want to guide their behavior. So when we convey to young children that we are on their team, we help them behave in positive ways. So, and when we guide that, right, that really helps them see that we really do care about them and that we are there for them. And then we want to keep that trust growing, right? So as the trust continues to develop with children, then they know that they can count on you. So, you know, I'm going to go back to that video. As we saw, right, that baby knew early on that there was comfort in, and there was trust in that voice that she heard as her dad just reassured her, like he was there and everything was okay. So in the chat, you know, I'd like for you to just share what, you know, think of a child that you have in your life. And what does it feel like when you make a personal connection with that child? How does it feel for you as an adult? So I'll give you a minute to just share in the chat. I know for me, it makes me, you know, it makes me feel happy and like renewed as a parent. Yeah, significant, proud as a teacher. It just makes it that connection, right? There's something when Dawn and I work a lot together, right? And we meet via Zoom and we have a connection there, but when we're in person, it's just a different type of connection, right? And so as humans, we're just always seeking that connection. And so it does something to us, right? To our soul, to our hearts, making us feel significant, making us happy. And so thinking about what it does for a young child that's just new and navigating this amazing world, right, around us. So thank you for sharing in the chat. So now we're going to move to step 3.
Okay, so with step 3, we're thinking about nurturing when we're nurturing our relationship with children, and then when we're doing that, we're extending their knowledge or stretching their knowledge because we are that adult working with them. If we remember what Angela talked about with Vygotsky, how children, when they work with adults and interact with adults, then their knowledge, actually their development and their knowledge and understanding is greater than it is without having that adult interaction with them. So some of the strategies, I'll just talk about 10 strategies that we can do with children to really extend their learning during those meaningful interactions. So things that we can try to bring into and be cognizant and aware of when we interact with children. And one of them, the first one, is really to have children see themselves as thinkers and as learners. So when we think aloud with children, we can extend their learning by encouraging them to tune into their own thinking. So we can do that by talking about what we see them doing, or maybe saying, you know, mentioning how we would think they would feel. For instance, if they come home with something from school, you know, we can talk about, oh my goodness, look at this, you know, this looks like you had to do a lot of thinking about that. Can you tell me how you did this math problem? And look, you got it right. How do you feel about that? What do you think about it? I would feel really proud to do such a hard math problem, or, you know, whatever it is, but helping them, if they're playing a game, helping them to think about the game. I'm just thinking about I've been visiting my grandkids, 3 of my grandkids, and playing Connect 4. And with the one that's 6 and about to be 7, really helping him think about where he's going to place his pieces and to think ahead, not just put something in, but think about what are all the options, and encouraging him when he does do that and giving him that positive feedback. Not just telling him good job, but saying, oh my gosh, look at that, you noticed that you could keep me from winning if you put your piece there. And then another thing, just responding to their curiosity. Curiosity really motivates children to learn and explore what they're already doing. And if we're giving them that, that um, positive feedback and to help them to be more curious and encourage their curiosity, it really helps to extend their learning. It's a great rich opportunity for them to learn more about what they're interested in. And one thing with that, if they feel like they have to do something, then they tend to lose that curiosity and that motivation for it. So we really want to encourage them, to follow their curiosity and the things that they're interested in. And then the third one is to use mirror talk. And that's just when we're providing children with feedback, when we're saying what we notice that they're noticing, and that we're telling them just, what we see. And again, it's kind of, we're saying what we're seeing them doing, and we're also, if they're happy, we're being happy. So we're kind of mirroring their emotions, but that's a great way to help them feel like they're noticed and what they're doing is important and valued. And when you think about it from a child's point of view, if mom or dad or nana or granddad or our favorite aunt or uncle is interested in what we're doing and they're making comments on it, oh my gosh, me as an individual, as a child, I must be so important and so special because these people that I look up to and admire are saying amazing things about me. So it's really important. And then the fourth one is having conversations. So conversations really strengthen relationships and at the same time can extend children's language and vocabulary as well. And the fifth strategy is to just inspire imaginative play with children. Children's imaginative play really helps to develop their symbolic thinking. Also, it helps them to think about people, places, and things that aren't right there in front of them. It helps them to understand that, people can see things differently and in different ways, but that's okay. And then the sixth strategy is we can solve problems together. By collaborating with children, we can help them think through those steps of a problem and help them think of multiple strategies they could use and to develop a positive attitude towards problem solving. And the seventh strategy is to use that rich vocabulary with them. The more complex and different words that we use with children, the more their vocabularies will grow. And that is so important in the younger years and early childhood, because until third grade, they're really just learning to read. And part of that is knowing vocabulary words, knowing words and what they mean. And then from third grade on or fourth grade on, they're really reading to learn. And so the bigger vocabulary they have, the more they'll be able to learn later when they're just reading. But if they don't know what the words are, that's going to be a struggle to learn. They're going to have to be always trying to figure out what words mean. So if we can read to them, talk with them, expand their vocabulary, that's really important. And then number 8 is to laugh with children. Bringing that humor into our interactions with kids is really important. We can extend their learning by exposing them to new ways to think and play with the language. But having that lightheartedness is important as well. And then the 9th strategy is to ask questions. So we need to make sure, that we're asking the right questions in just the right way so we can help them to think about things, and it can ignite their curiosity and push them to think about things in different ways. One thing that I've noticed, if they don't answer a question right away, giving them time to think and really process that question and then come up with their answer is really important. So that could be up to 10 seconds. Sometimes with some children may need that full 10 seconds to really process and then come up with an answer. And then also sometimes if we just ask a question that they would definitely know the answer to, it's a yes or no question or a specific question that only has one answer, like what color is your shirt? Red. There's that specific answer. But then if we ask a deeper question, like, well, why did you wear your red shirt today? What does red mean to you? If we've already kind of primed their thinking with that concrete question where there's only one answer, that then helps them to think about those deeper questions. But so giving them that time to process the question and to formulate an answer is really important. And then the last one is to link the new information to things that are familiar with them already. So helping children to relate new concepts and information with what they already know and what they're interested in really helps them to be able to remember, that new information and to use it later. So just trying to think, of course we can't use all of these strategies at once. So what I would suggest is just to take note of 1 or 2 of those strategies that you can implement in your life right now. And then you can make those a habit and then start adding another. But really, what's 1 or 2 things that you would feel comfortable doing and turning into a habit is important.
So why are meaningful interactions critical? Well, when we are more intentional, right? That is obviously, like you saw, is more beneficial to a child's overall development, right? And that connectedness that we have with a child. So your relationship will improve and it'll grow. The other thing that happens is your interactions will be richer and they'll become more enjoyable. And then thinking about, the different interactions that we have with the different children in our lives, they become more individualized. And so again, it's just more meaningful and really a great learning opportunity for the young children in our lives.
So then just really remembering that you do make a difference in the children, the children's lives that are in your life. You make a difference for them, and that without you, there are no meaningful interactions. So using those 3 steps to be present and to connect and to extend learning really help you have a guideline on how you can have those meaningful interactions. So then just some questions to kind of reflect on. How do you build those positive or meaningful interactions with the children in your life? Or how might you do it? And how can you continue to foster those relationships with the young children in your life?
So that is all that we have. Are there any questions?
Thank you,
Thank
April.
you, guys. It makes me wonder that, you hear about all these, well, let's just talk about shooters, these people that are having trouble expressing themselves in what we would consider maybe a normal way. They're using violence and anger and outreach. And you just wonder how many missed opportunities perhaps were earlier on in their life, and they just missed that whole skill development of how you solve a problem or communicate your frustration. And so I have a new great niece. She is pretty terrific, but she's my niece's niece. And I just this is the first baby I've been around, so I feel a lot of pressure now that I'm aware of some of the things that you've been saying. But I thank you for bringing this to our attention, and it gives me a lot to think about, and I hope other people too. So once again, do we have any questions? I don't see anything in the chat. Somebody have their hand raised?
And I just want to share one more thought as individuals are thinking if they have a question. But, especially in the world of technology, technology has done wonderful things and provided us a lot of information on how the brain learns and the importance of these interactions. But, technology doesn't replace that interaction that you have with the young child. And so as you think about, what you brought up as far as the shootings and different things like that, a lot of it may stem from those pieces, right? Where unfortunately I see it often. I go to the restaurant with my husband and you look around. I'll give you an example. We were at Disneyland over the weekend. We're at Disneyland, the happiest place on earth, right? And what did I see? Young children waiting in line, and this is what they're doing. They're looking at their phones or their parents' phone or a tablet, instead of maybe having a conversation or playing a game and extending some learning. And so as an early childhood educator, it just it hurts, right? Yeah, because you're just like, oh, this is a perfect opportunity to have some rich conversation about all the wonderful things you see, right? How does this ride work? What do you think? Maybe we could build this when we come, when we go back home, or, just different conversations like that I feel like are missed opportunities, because so many people are depending on technology to replace us. And it's just, it's not,
They're the new pacifier,
Yeah.
People say that there used to be a lot of anxiety about kids using a pacifier, but technology is the new pacifier.
Yeah.
It makes the sound stop.
Yeah.
It occupies them, that's what
Yeah.
And the crazy thing is, so I have my youngest granddaughter she just turned 4 months old today. And she actually lives close to me, and I see her several times a week. And my daughter is like, I'm thinking if Amory was maybe 2 months old, she wasn't very old, and she was over at our house and the TV was on, and it was just on for noise. And my daughter's like, oh, Amory can't watch TV. And I'm like, she's not, it's the news or whatever. But it was amazing, just like how she was staring at it. And I turned it off, and then she like